Yeah. No front number. Yeah. Yeah. Unashamed, unafraid. I'm trying to walk the walk. Truth on the mic, no shame here, just real talk. Came from the outside, never fit in. Now we tell the story and the healing begins. No front, no mask, just telling the truth. Keep it real, keep it raw, speaking straight from the booth. If you feeling like an outsider, this one's for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to Unashamed, Unafraid. This is another Live Unashamed episode where we get real about recovery and talk about real healing and real resources that actually work. Unashamed is a podcast about being unashamed of sexual addiction recovery and unafraid of coming unto Christ for healing. James and Chris,
So
good
good
to have
be
both
here.
of you.
How are you?
James, you're just joining us
For tonight.
For tonight. I've been on the show before.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
like
Welcome,
at least
James.
one time you've
Yeah,
been on
yeah.
the show.
Yeah.
I missed you, man. I was thinking about you. It's been a minute since I've seen James.
It's
Been a
good
month.
to see you.
Yeah, it's been exactly a month.
Good to see you. And we have a face I haven't seen for a few years here.
Hi, guys.
Miss Maddie.
What's up? I'm back.
So good to have you back.
So, for anyone who's not familiar with what you do, Maddie, do you want to tell us about your podcast and why you're hopping
Yeah.
on with us tonight?
Yeah. So I'm Madi Davis. I host a podcast called Sisters on the Front Lines, and it's a podcast specifically focused towards women who struggle with pornography. And I just have different guests on. I have just different professionals like therapists and parents and life coaches and whatnot come on and share their perspective, and then just girls come on and share their stories. But we're here doing this episode because Chris asked me, Maddie, what would you like to hear in a Live Unashamed episode? And I was like, probably women. He was like,
We
Let's
got
do
to
it.
have a woman on the podcast to talk about women.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
So
that was perfect.
We're primarily a men's podcast. All three of us are men, and we're the hosts. And so we don't touch on this enough. Sisters on the Front Line is really cool because in a lot of ways it's an equivalent of what we do, but for women specifically. So talk to us a little bit about what's been your experience in that, and what comes up for women as they navigate this, because it's highly prevalent for women as well. Just maybe not talked about in the same way that men's pornography addiction wasn't talked about 10 or 15 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit behind in that conversation, and there's a lot of shame attached to it.
yeah, totally. I mean, there's like statistics thrown all around, but one that I've heard a lot is that it's about 1 in 3 women that struggle with pornography. But you definitely don't hear 1 in 3 women talking about it, right?
No way.
And so I think that there's just an extra layer of shame for women, especially, I mean, I can only speak to my experience, but like a woman growing up in the church or growing up religious, where we're kind of painted with this image of needing to be like innocent and perfect. And then you just have this thing that you're hiding deep down inside that you feel like makes you dark and dirty and gross. So yeah, I think that there's just an extra layer of shame.
Agreed.
So you run Sisters on the Front Line. Can you tell us a little bit, give us a sense for what typical themes in women's stories are? Like, I just think that there's probably so much that we can glean from your database or your knowledge that you've kind of soaked up as you've listened to women talk.
Yeah.
Assume there's a bunch of women listening right now to you and are like, finally somebody's speaking from my perspective.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that like one of the biggest things that I've noticed in everyone's stories is that they are so shocked when they find out one way or another that they're not the literal only woman in the world that has ever struggled with this. Like every single girl that I've had on and interviewed has had moments where they have felt just like completely alone and just so filled with shame. There was a girl that came on, her name is Amanda. She runs an organization called the Victory Collective, which is another organization that's specifically for women struggling with pornography. So if you're curious, definitely go check it out. And she's a Christian organization too. But in her story, she was talking about when she was first struggling with this and she decided to open up to someone about it. She decided to write a note to her mom. And she wrote this note and she thought about it. And eventually what she did is she tore up the note and threw it into the river. Because it was just too, like, not only could she just, like, she couldn't just throw it away, right? Like, she had to get rid of the evidence. And I think that just speaks to, like, the major shame that you feel struggling with this as a woman. And I share a little bit about this on my podcast in the first episode, just, like, about my story. But I struggled with it when I started when I was, like, 13 or so. And so I would sit in these lessons in Young Women's with girls that were about like 15 girls that were my similar age. And I remember the leaders, and they didn't have any ill intents with this, but they would say like, okay, guys, here's our lesson on pornography. We know that you guys don't struggle with this, but here's how to like support your future spouse or whatever. And I mean, there were even negative messages about that too. Like, oh, if you're dating someone that, you know, struggles with this, then like you better run away.
Major
and
red flag. You better run. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so then what does that tell you as someone who's struggling with it? Oh, okay, so I am completely alone. And
That's
then that
triple shame right there.
yeah, that just gives the adversary kind of such a good in.
Mm-hmm.
How did that set you back in getting help and talking about it?
I think that's what kept me stuck for so long, because I had kind of heard about pornography, but I had only heard that it was like a guy's problem. And so I think that that's what kept me stuck for so long. And I also think that like what pornography would do for me as a woman is it would kind of diminish like my identity, and that I was only, you know, something that was to be like used for my sexual nature or whatever. And so it just kind of tore down my self-esteem. And then eventually when I did go and talk to someone about it, it was my bishop or just my religious leader. And the very first things that he said to me were just, you are still a daughter of God, and you're still just as loved, and you're still just as valued. And he didn't say anything about the pornography use. He just talked about who I was. And I think that's why it was so impactful, because he was finally touching on that identity piece that had just been missing for so long.
Because that shame has just been attacking that identity of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are typical things that women feel when they get shamed that may be different than the way that men feel
Around this issue?
Yeah.
And you may not be as in tune with, I mean, because you're dealing with the
Yeah.
female population, but I'd assume they experience it in some different ways to some extent.
Yeah. I would say, like, I think women maybe deal with comparison a little bit more than men do. So I think just maybe looking at other women and being like, oh, well, I'm never going to be.
I'm never that size or shape or whatever. Yeah.
And even, not even like women in pornography, but just like women in general, and just being like, oh, there's no way that this perfect girl like struggles with this, you know?
Oh, got it.
And just kind of putting yourself down for that, I would say.
So Josh just sent a text. He just did, sitting here watching everybody. And he said the vast majority of recovery resources are created by and for men. What was it like trying to find resources, groups, or therapists who understood the female experience of this issue? And what are some of the resources you would recommend to women who might be listening?
Yeah. I remember I was probably like 13 or 14 and finally recognized that this was something that was creeping into my life, like too much. So I remember I went to go and Google, like, is it okay or is it normal for like women to struggle with pornography? And every single result was how to help your spouse if they're struggling with pornography. And then I was oh, okay.
Oh,
So nobody's talking about it. Yeah.
And I had to go to like the second page of Google to even find anything that was remotely related to that, which, like, who goes to the second page of Google? But
like nobody.
yeah. But yeah, so it was like that was super isolating, and honestly, like, I didn't find resources, and so that's why I started the podcast, was so that people did have a resource.
Love that.
So as far as resources, not to just self-plug, but my podcast 100%, like, that's why I made it. I would say my podcast, I would say The Victory Collective is another good one. There's one called She Recovery, but those are honestly like the only 3 that I really know of.
And you're also part of a club at BYU.
Yes, the Unalone Club.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And we have a couple women that come to that. Some are coming to like support someone, but we do have a couple that come because they're struggling. And I remember actually I was like sitting in a meeting a couple weeks ago, and this girl raises her hand and she's like, I just feel like women need to be talking about this. Like there's not, like I just feel so alone as a woman. And then I'm just like sitting in this meeting. I'm like, boy, do I have news for you.
Like,
That's
you're
awesome.
just about to be
Yeah.
on my podcast.
Yeah. And so anyway, we're friends now, but it's so true. Like you just feel totally alone.
So if we have some young women listening to this show right now, this episode right now, what are some of the message you'd want to give them?
I'd just say that, you're not alone, and just that there's hope, and like it's possible to get out of this. Like this isn't something that's gonna control the rest of your life, and this isn't something that you have to hide for the rest of your life. That there's people that you can talk to that you're gonna be surprised at how well they receive you. And so I would just invite them to try and talk to someone about it, because
Someone that you feel safe with.
yeah, someone that you feel safe with and you feel like will receive you well. And if you feel like you don't have someone in your life, you can reach out to me for real. Like DM me on Instagram or send me an email, and I'm more than happy to have those conversations.
Maddie, what does safety look like for someone who doesn't necessarily come from a background where they have found safety in their lives? What would a woman be looking for?
Yeah, to talk about this with. What have been the signals or the people you've looked for that you're like, that's somebody I could talk to about it?
I think it's like no conversation about this with someone that I like trust has started with just being like, hey, did you know I struggle with pornography? Like
Right.
I'll kind of like test the waters. And so that would
Yeah.
also be my advice to someone is like, maybe just like bring it up and just be like kind of like getting a gauge for how they might receive it. And if they're not going to receive it well, you don't have to tell them about it. But I would just say someone that you feel like sees you similarly to how God sees you, and like sees you through God's eyes, and that your worth isn't gonna change. And that's hard to see before you've told someone that, because the adversary's on that.
Yeah.
Like he wants you to think that everyone that you talk to is gonna just think of you less than. But I can tell you that every time someone has talked to me about this, I've only respected them and loved them more.
Maddie, as you've been in recovery and you've been working through some of the challenges that have, kind of brought themselves in your journey, what have you found that's really worked well for you? And this may or may not be similar to men's resources or kind of the process for men, but I'm just curious what that looks like.
Yeah. My biggest thing is just connection. Like connection with yourself, connection with other people, and connection with God. Because I think a lot of times when I would like fall into pornography use, it was when I had like some unstructured time, or if I was like feeling bad about myself and I needed some escape, or I had some issues going on in my life. It was just like, it was a lot of times we talk about it as if it's like the problem, but it's not. It's trying to pose as the solution, but doesn't really work that well. Come to find out.
It's the solution that doesn't work out so well in the long run, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But that would just be my biggest thing. I know that's kind of like general and abstract or whatever, but just connection, like genuinely talking to someone about it and not being afraid to get down on your knees and talk to God about it. I've had so many times where I'm like, I don't want to pray right now because I'm just like too, like I can't face God right now because he's going to be so mad at me for like what I've done. And when is that ever true? And so just starting to be open about it. I genuinely think that like the more open you are about it, the greater your recovery and the faster and more effective.
Awesome. Love that.
Well, I was going to ask along the same lines of like, for you, what have been some of the keys to your personal recovery or growth as you have worked towards sobriety or worked to overcome this?
Yeah.
Outside of like community or connection, what are some other areas that you're like, that has really been a major contributor to me finding sobriety and recovery in this process?
Mhm. I mean, I'm not saying everybody should like start a podcast, but like
Sure.
that was pretty helpful, honestly. But I think that just helped to be able to, like, I'm just talking about it frequently
Mhm.
and openly. And I don't think you need a podcast to like create that. Like, I
Right.
think you can have frequent conversations. But I would also say just like pouring myself into like hobbies and like just good uses of my time and doing those things. Like, I think this is one thing that I've learned a ton is like doing those things and spending time with like the people I love out of love and not out of like fear of like, oh my gosh, like I have to do something over these next 3 hours. Otherwise, I'm definitely going to like look at pornography, you know? But just being like, man, like I love these people that I'm spending my time with. Or I love, like for me, I love going to the gym. I think exercise has been like a big thing for me. And so like just finding things that you like genuinely love and can spend your time on is a big thing for me.
What would you say is the one or two things that cause you to still trip up at this stage in your recovery? What's a hurdle you still need to overcome, you feel like, or what's a stumbling block you still run into?
Yeah. I honestly haven't, like, since my mission and since a while before my mission.
What was the last hurdle then that you needed to overcome prior to finding that? The thing that kind of finally got you over the hump.
I honestly wouldn't say that there was any, like, big breakthrough moment, but I just think it was, like, continued connection and, like, and I think viewing like, really looking at the way that I viewed myself. Because I think a lot of times if I would let any of those, like, labels of, oh, man, I'm just being, like, dirty, I'm just being lazy, I'm just being unproductive, if I let any of those labels get above my label as just a child of God, then I think that's when I would fall into it. So just keeping that in check and just remembering who I am and remembering who the people around me are.
Have you developed a sense for when you're starting to go there now?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's also what really helped, like, early on, because early on it was really easy to just, right after I had, like, slipped up, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never thinking about that again, and, like, we're pushing that down to the depth of despair, you know? And I never actually took time to, like, examine it and be like, okay, so why did that actually happen? Like, how was I feeling about myself? What was I doing, like, an hour before? Or, like, when was the last time I had a meaningful conversation with someone, you know? Yeah, I definitely, like, do have a better sense for that, and I'm just more, like, aware of that.
Yeah, I was just curious because I'm kind of getting to a point in my recovery where I am getting a better sense for it. Like, I could tell you, like, I think 3 hours from now, I will have relapsed if I don't pivot right now. And I'm wondering if that gets easier or just with practice it becomes more like a muscle that you flexed enough. It's kind of intuitive.
Yeah. And I think that's, like, a win in and of itself, right? Like, you're noticing it earlier and earlier on, and so I think that's cool.
Knowing where it's going to lead to.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So as we're wrapping this episode up, I'm just curious what your final thoughts are just about women's pornography recovery and what you would kind of want people to leave with after, talking about this issue.
Yeah, I guess I have, like, two things. I guess I'll start with maybe someone who is not struggling with it, whether you're a woman or a man, and maybe knows a woman, so everyone. but just, like, I would say when you're talking about it, instead of just saying, like, oh, he is struggling with pornography, like, just maybe saying she, like, and just kind of breaking that stereotype, and also just, like, checking in, like, genuinely just checking in. And it can just be, like, a curiosity thing, just be like, I've never really heard of, like, women struggling with this, like, have you ever, I don't know, I feel like people are being more and more open about those conversations now. But just showing all the women in your life just genuine love. And then to any girls who are struggling or women who are struggling, I think I would just want to leave with a message that you're so redeemable, and just that everything that you want to do and become is just so possible, and none of your worth has been lost because of things that you've done or are doing. And so just take this as your opportunity to go reach out to someone about it.
Maddie, thanks for being on today. We appreciate you. If this was helpful to you and you know anyone, man or woman, who this would be helpful to listen to, share this with them. We want to get this resource out to more people.
Right now. Send it.
Right now. If you're driving, probably pull over. But yeah, let's get this out to more people because there's a lot of women struggling who don't feel like they have the resources and the help and the safety to start getting help. So appreciate you being on, Maddie. Find us on social media at Unashamed, Unafraid. You can get access to our bonus content, become an outsider at unashamedunafraid.com. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till next time, continue to live unashamed.
Yeah.